was just right there. It just scared me. Like, he was just right there. Literally.
Please enter the room silently and begin working on your catalyst.
Hi.
You weren't here yesterday? Alright, so disable. Anyone else who wasn't here yesterday? Yeah. So those
Ooh, I appreciate how quietly you guys are entering the room. You're doing a fabulous job today. Ooh, I'm about ready to give you guys another dojo point for the whole class. If we can all get our catalyst out in the next 30 seconds, you'll earn another dojo point. It's just Ooh, I see 3 packets out on this table. 4 packets out on this table. Elijah's starting on his catalyst already. Awesome. Okay. Excuse me, Michael and Mark. You need to sit down silently and get going. Why don't you sit at the table back there for right now, because we have to move a little bit because the people at those tables, they're working on stuff with Miss A. You can let it, where's your seat, Mom?
This table is for your Tom's.
Oh, okay. Okay, class. My instructions were to just find an empty seat. I know seating's a little bit off today, so just find a seat because we need to have that back table for people who were not here yesterday. You guys are doing a really good job. Keep it up.
Can you tell him to get out?
You can trade it in. Yeah.
No, I want to. It's like a sign to get a different package. Please get out my chair.
I like your grammar. It's on your back pocket.
She put
For this one for right now, and then you can transfer your you can transfer it over to your back one. I said to find an empty seat. Remember, seats are off today, so it's not your seat. Class?
Yes.
Ooh, one more time. Class?
Yes.
Can somebody please read our first question in the catalyst for me? Michael. Awesome, thank you. Why is it important to record our data? Now, if I was having a hard time answering this question, if I couldn't remember, where would I look? Where could I look for the answer to this question? Manny?
In our notes.
In our notes from yesterday. Thanks, Manny. So if you are having a hard time remembering why it's important to keep track of our data, look back in your notes. We did answer this yesterday. And I gave us a hint. What is the hint that I gave us, Angelina? Answer it and then you can ask your question. Okay, let's talk about it. Can you read the hint for us and we'll talk about the word? Society.
Think about society and in
Thank you. Think about society and in experiments. Society. Who can tell us what society means? What does society mean, Sanjana? Yeah, the community. Thank you very much. It's civilization. It's the community. It's all of humans working together. And I will ask you. But I believe you guys can do it. All right. I see Aiden's got an answer written down. Oh, I see Kai's got an answer written down. Alec, make sure you're doing the tab list, okay, from yesterday. Good. Yeah. All right, who can tell me what is one reason it is important to record our data? If you would like to, I know you were kind of off yesterday, if you'd like to sit in this A and review for yesterday, you can do that, and then you can catch up with this. And if you think that you need another day, do you think you need another day on what we did yesterday? No. Okay. Alrighty. So, what is one reason it is important to record our data? Mark? Can you say it a little bit louder, please? To remember how we measured our experiment. Yeah. What part of the data will tell you how we measured our experiment? Part of the table. Who can you remember what it's called? E. Starts with a U. What tells us how we measured it? Yeah, the unit of measurement. The unit of measurement tells us what we measured it in. What's another reason it's important to record our data, Kaylee? Awesome, to keep track of our results. Why is it important to keep track of our results? Why do we care?
So you could do your, it's hard to, because
Okay, so Kaylee told us that we need to keep track of our results. Who can build on what Kaylee said and say why is it important to keep track of our results? Pearl?
it's important to keep track of our results because, like, so you can go back and read the notes and see what you need to improve on.
Awesome, thanks. So we can see what we need to improve on. We can go back through our notes. Awesome. What's another reason we need to record our data, Simon? Help us with something. What could it help us with? Kaya?
If it was an experiment,
Great. Kaya said if we're doing an experiment to maybe help solve cancer or help cure cancer, we can look back on our data and we can build on that. Alondra? Awesome. So scientists, Okay, so scientists can share and analyze our data. Who remembers the example of technology that I used yesterday to help us picture why it's important to record our results? Yeah?
so generations don't have to start over.
So generations don't have to start over, so we can communicate, right? And we can build on what we learned from the last generation. Awesome, great answer, Keegan. Michael?
So that you can make it better.
So you can make it better. What did I give an example of that we made better over time? Alondra? The iPhone. What iPhone are we on? 5S, right? Did we just come up with the 5S out of nowhere?
No. You have to record your data and follow the generation. You have to record your data and you don't have to just come up with it. You have to think.
Yeah, you gotta think that to record your data, we had to come up with what first? The iPhone 1, then the 2, then the 3. We couldn't just come up with the 5 right away. We had to build on what we'd already done. All right, today, what are we gonna be able to do today? Can somebody read our objectives for me, please? Rahima?
That use evidence from data
Awesome, thank you. So we're going to be able to form conclusions. We're going to be able to conclude. And I think you guys have probably done this in reading before. Form conclusions are basically think about the information and come up with a thought on it. We're going to be able to form conclusions that use evidence from data to prove whether or not our hypothesis or our prediction before the experiment is correct or incorrect. Now, the key here, guys, the key that's going to take you from kind of getting this to being a master is this word right here. What's this word?
Evidence.
Evidence. Can somebody read this up here for me, please? Megan?
Super scholar justified their answers with evidence.
Awesome, thank you. I don't want to know whether your hypothesis was incorrect. I don't want to just know that. I want to know why. Because I can tell you, well, why do you think that? And you need to be able to justify it or explain your answer using evidence from your data. How is our data organized? What did we learn how to organize it into yesterday?
Data tables.
A data table. So today we're going to be analyzing our data tables and using that information to tell us whether or not our hypotheses are correct or incorrect. All right, next slide, please, Simon. Thank you. How will you know that you've got this? Deja, how will you know you've got this? Can you read the first one for me, please? A little louder?
You can read a hypothesis, look at the data, and state whether the hypothesis was correct or incorrect using a specific whatever data from the experiment.
Thank you. So you're going to be able to read a hypothesis, look at your data table, and say, oh, that hypothesis was correct, or that hypothesis was incorrect, using results or data from your experiment. What's the next way you'll know you've got this, Angelina?
You can explain the relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable and using these relationships to prove the hypothesis correct or incorrect.
Thank you. So you're going to be able to tell me about the relationship or how the independent and the dependent variable are connected and use that information. That's how we're going to analyze those data tables. You're going to look at the independent variable and the dependent variable and say, what is the relationship? Are they increasing or decreasing? And you're going to use that to help us prove your hypothesis. Keith? Okay, can you ask me? Oh, this is what we're going to be doing next. Okay? Any questions about what we're going to be doing today or how you're going to know you've got it? You guys are going to be able to tell me whether you think you have this or not at the end of class? Yeah? Sandrana? Sure, what's up?
Are we going to do an actual experiment or just look at a hypothesis?
We're going to practice today on just looking at data tables that are already made and looking at hypotheses. And then later on, we're going to be able to apply these to experiments. But we need to be able to do it just reading and using paper first. Alan? So we are going to be doing, we've got a quiz coming up this week. And then next week, we're going to take our quick test on the unit. After we take the test, then we're going to do the gummy bear lab to finish up the unit. Okay? All right, next slide, Simon. Thank you. All right, now to your guided notes. Guided notes. A conclusion has 2 parts. Not 3, not 1, 2 parts. Yes. Yeah, you can sharpen it. There are no good ones here. 2 parts. First of all, it tells us whether our hypothesis was correct or incorrect. And then after it tells us whether or not the hypothesis was correct, whether it was correct or incorrect, it's going to summarize what happened in the experiment. That is our evidence. All right. What is the first part of a conclusion? First part of a conclusion, Keith. What is our first part?
It has to tell whether the hypothesis is proven to be correct or incorrect.
Awesome. Is correct right or wrong? Correct, does correct mean right or does correct mean wrong? Correct means right. What about incorrect? Does incorrect mean right or does incorrect mean wrong, Rahima? Wrong. Bless you. So we're proving whether our hypothesis is right or wrong, correct or incorrect. What is the second part? Keith told us what the first part of a conclusion is. What is the second part of a conclusion? What is the second part of a conclusion? Elijah? You know what the second part of a conclusion is?
Your explanation was correct or incorrect.
Your explanation, why it was correct or incorrect, your evidence. Thank you. And what is our evidence in here? How are we saying whether it's correct or incorrect? What are we doing? Look at the second part here. Yeah, summarizing. That's how we're going to use evidence. That's how we're going to explain whether our hypothesis was correct or incorrect and why we thought that. Sanjana?
Oh, I have a question that I have.
Oh.
So I have a question. Can you ever do the conclusion before you finish the entire series? Like if your conclusion what you
Okay. What do you guys think? Sanjana asks an interesting question. She asked, can you write your conclusion? Could you ever write your conclusion before you do your experiment? What do you guys think? Raise your hand if you think you could write your conclusion before you do your experiment.
No, not before the experiment, like when you're halfway through.
Oh, when you're halfway through.
See, that's
Raise your hand if you think maybe when you're halfway through you can do it. Okay, hands down. Raise your hand if you think that you can't do it until you're done with the experiment. Dumb? Do you have a question? Okay, I'll get to it in a sec, okay? So, Sanjana, you can't actually, it's a conclusion because it's at the end. It's at the conclusion of the experiment, and you need to be able to use the data that's in your data table. You could start recording your observations and what's happening. You record that in your data notebook, and those are parts of your observations and your records, but it's not your conclusion until it's the very end of the experiment.
And my second question, does the summary have to be any specific certain type of how long it has to be?
So we're working right now on just coming up with that thought and just coming up with like a basic summary and analysis. However, a good conclusion that you write for a scientific paper does have a format and it does have a certain length. But we're gonna right now just work on analyzing those data tables and using those to come up with a basic statement.
Okay.
Keith, you had your hand raised.
Can I go to the back?
Okay, yes, you may. Take the pass, okay? Yeah.
Can I go to the retail pass?
Did you go during lunch?
No, I didn't. I was stuck there with walking.
Okay. No, you're gonna have to wait, okay? You're gonna have to wait till independent practice.
Oh.
Alright, next slide, please. Alright, so here's my example for you. So you guys know the drill. I'm gonna model one for you, show you my thinking, and then you're gonna work together, then you're gonna work on your own. So for this first one, we're gonna imagine we've done the gummy bear experiment already. We're gonna imagine. So my hypothesis before I did the experiment was if a gummy bear soaks in water, then it will decrease in size because the sugar will dissolve in water. That was my prediction. That's what I thought was gonna happen. Let's look at my data. Oh, so my data, my title of my data table is how time soaked in water affects gummy bear length. What variable do I have on this side? Do I have my independent or dependent variable on this side? Mimi, what do you think? Awesome, thanks. It's your independent. That's what we're changing as the scientist. Then if the independent's on the left-hand side, what goes on the right-hand side? Angelina? What? No, not your control variable. Your dependent variable, what you measure. So I recorded, these were my experimental variables. I soaked a gummy bear in water for an hour and recorded what happened. I soaked a gummy bear in water for 4 hours and recorded what happened. And I I soaked a gummy bear in water for 24 hours, and I recorded what happened. So we're going to use the information in this data table to decide whether or not my hypothesis is correct. Now, did I think that my numbers, the size of my gummy bear, the gummy bear length, would get bigger or get smaller? What did I think? Raise your hand if you think that I thought that the gummy bear was going to get bigger and size was going to increase. Raise your hand if I thought the gummy bear was going to get smaller and it was going to decrease. Yeah, I thought it was going to decrease. Layla, why did I think it was going to decrease? What was my because? Yeah, I thought it was going to dissolve. I thought the sugar was going to dissolve in water. Well, did that happen? Let's see. My hypothesis was, you guys think incorrect or correct?
Incorrect.
Let's see, everyone yell what they think. Incorrect or correct?
Incorrect.
It was incorrect because increasing the time that I soaked it in water actually caused it to what? Increase or decrease? Increase in size. I thought the length was going to decrease, but the length increased. So please fill in the blanks for my conclusion in your guided notes. Please fill in the blanks for my conclusion in your guided notes. Awesome. That's gone too. Thank you. Angelina.
I thought that the gummy bear was going to increase because, like, if you have the gummy bear in your mouth a long time, don't it, like, increase because it's, like, puffing up?
Yeah, so if that was your hypothesis. You thought that if I put the gummy bear in water, then it will increase, right? Because when I put it in my mouth, it increases. Would your hypothesis be correct or incorrect? Correct. Why? Because you're right, you gotta use the data. What actually happened? We see that it grew from 2 to 4. Well, it's not testing in your mouth though, it's doing the experiment. So you gotta look at the data in the data table. Okay, not just what you think is the normal experiment. Yeah.
1 hour and 4 hours in the
Correct. All right, do we have any questions on how Miss Barney came to this conclusion? How I used the information from this data table to tell me about the relationship between the independent variable, or the time soaked in water, and the dependent variable, what I measured, the length. So I noticed that as these numbers increased, as the time soaked in water increased, my gummy bear length increased. What did it start out as? So after 1 hour, how big was it?
2 centimeters.
It was 2 centimeters. How big was it after 24 hours?
4 centimeters.
4. It doubled in size. So I look at the numbers, I look at my data table, and I can see that as time increased, the length increased. Is incorrect. Is it positive? Increase. All right. Can you do the next slide?
No. Oh,
Any other questions about how to form conclusions? Now, if you're like, man, Miss Barney, this is easy, I've got this. To make your conclusions even better, you can use numbers. The more specific data that you use in your conclusion, the more convinced I'm going to be that you proved your conclusion or your hypothesis correct or incorrect. So I can use just the general relationship, increase and decrease, as my evidence, but evidence can also be numbers. So you could have said, oh, the gummy bear actually increased by 2 centimeters. That would be even more convincing than increase. So if you're thinking that this is really easy, push yourself to use more data from the data table. Use more numbers in your answer. Can you switch to the slide, please, Simon? Haley? Your abstract? No. I'm going to talk about that when we get closer to the science fair, but abstract is a summary of everything from your experiment. And it's just basically people being able to look at this piece of paper and get a general idea of what you did in your conclusion. So it's a summary of everything. All right. So next one, please. All right. Please do this one together with your table. Try to come up with this conclusion. So breathe over the hypothesis. Look at your data. Oh, is it not here, chart yet? Yeah, it's in there. And then try to write a conclusion. Use the table mates at your table. Yeah, you do.
Hypothesis was chocolate has fat, which has been proven to increase the hypothesis is incorrect. The hypothesis, not this. If we look at the chart, the groups that did not have chocolate, they had higher scores. They had higher scores. They tested. I think why the testing average no chocolate group got higher because in the hypothesis it says a test then they're taking a test and when they eat chocolate it decreases their brain function.
Good thing. Hypothesis correct or incorrect? Give me thumbs up for correct. Who thought my hypothesis was correct? I want to see everybody with your thumbs up or your thumbs down. Thumbs up for correct. Thumbs down for incorrect. Thumbs up for correct. Thumbs down for incorrect. All right, Jared, so you thought the hypothesis was incorrect. How did you justify your answer with evidence? Yeah, we're on 2. We're on this one down here. So you said that the hypothesis was incorrect. Why did you think it was incorrect? What's the second part of your conclusion? Okay, so Jared thinks that the chocolate prevented the brain from functioning. That might be the case. That's a good explanation. But we want to tie it back to the specific data in our data table. So what data can we pick out from our data table to tell us that this hypothesis was incorrect, Keith?
Because if you look at the total average with chocolate, it increased, and with no chocolate, with the one with chocolate decreased, the one with no chocolate it increased.
Awesome, great, thank you, Keith. So we see here, we look at our tests. Our average test score with no chocolate was a 61%. Our test average with chocolate was a 59%. Which one was higher? Who scored better? No chocolate. So that means our hypothesis was incorrect because we thought they would increase, but they actually decrease. Angelina, do you have a question?
When it says this increase because chocolate has fat, which has been proven to increase function, this table that it decreased because it says the effective we looked at the graph and then it said the group one that I think was the test, and then we looked at the average test grades that they got on their tests that have no chocolate. We seen that they scored the same on the first one, and then no chocolate people that didn't eat chocolate scored like 3 above or 2 above because it said that the brain function was going to increase. That means like they're going to get I don't think they're going to get more sweet, but I thought it was decreased at first and then increased, but then I figured out it was decreased because I thought it was.
Okay. So Angelina said something in there that was really good. She used numbers actually to explain her evidence. She said that it decreased by 2. The people who took the test with chocolate had lower score by 2. Does anybody, are these questions or comments? Question? Yes. So even if the hypothesis was correct, you'd say the hypothesis was correct because the students with chocolate did have higher scores. So you do have to support it either way. It's a good question. Go for it, Deja.
I thought you're supposed to not.
I know, but we actually don't have any unsharpened or sharpened ones right now, so I'm gonna have to have some of my 8th graders sharpen them. Alex? Yes. Okay.
My kind of view was the first group, the score average stays the same, and it really does determine if older people.
Okay, yeah, so Sanjana sees that the first test, the scores stayed the same for with chocolate and without chocolate. So that means that maybe there was just a fluke with this second group. So how could you test to see whether, how could you do further tests maybe to prove your hypothesis or increase the reliability?
You can make the same gender, same age.
So to have more controls? Okay. Could you do this maybe with more students to see if they all have the same effect? Yeah, we could compare. That's why we did 2 groups and found the average. All right, we're going to move on so you guys have a chance to do your other examples. Aiden? Okay, as soon as I get them started, I'll come over and check your stuff and then you can go. Okay? All right, next one. So we have here, hypothesis was incorrect because the average test scores decreased by 2% when students ate chocolate. All right, next one. And again. All right, please do number 3 and 4 with a partner. Then raise your hand and I'll come over and check and you can start on 5 and 6. 8-minute warning before we have to start packing up.
Wow, we got 15 minutes left.
By the end of this 8 minutes, you need to be done with your independent practice.
Or your homework.
If you finish, hold on, if you finish, you may work on your homework. However, we need to start packing up about 7 minutes before the end of class because it takes us a while to get quiet sometimes and we don't want to make everyone else late. So, remember, 8 more minutes to finish that independent practice. If you're done, you can work on your homework. I'm going to be checking your planners on the way out to make sure that you have your homework written in, which is page 6. So make sure you write it in your planners. Look your stuff and sit silently. Sanjana will dismiss you. Miss A is looking to give you guys a class dojo point for lining up silently.
Like we got yesterday?
Dojo out.
Are you here during study hall?
Michael.
Okay, see if Mr. Smith will
Sorry.
send you. Okay, are you here during study hall?
Michael Jordan. Whatever.
Are you here during,
I'm sitting down.
I know. Come over at 2:45 and I'll help you guys with this because I know you guys think you have to have
I think I'm trying to stay
Alright, please go line up in the hallway. Remember, Miss A is looking to see quiet lines.
I'm watching you as you walk out too. What?
This bitch can line up.
Oh yeah, can't fight this.
40 seconds, Simon. Good. Let's make it next time.